everyone, and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I'm your host, Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Program, where I try to help you spend your wine dollars wisely. And once again, we're in Mike's Wine Bar and Cafe in downtown Friday Harbor, and I'm interviewing Matt Loso. Matt, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I have a cameraman today. Mike's back at it.
Hi, Stan.
He's kind of, he's not dressed well enough to get in front of the camera, so we're not going to have him in front.
Stan's not wearing any pants right now. That's why we have the bar there.
You're not supposed to give away that secret. Anyway, Matt Loso, many of you may know if you're Washington wine people, have been around for a while, had Matthews Cellars for a long time. Now, when did you start Matthews Cellars?
Started in 1993.
Okay.
1993.
And Matthew told me a cool story. We'll just give him a few minutes just to give you an idea what it's like to start your own winery. Maybe you could tell him a little bit of how you got it started.
Yeah, I kind of started in the business when I was 21 years old, but in restaurants. And that restaurant job evolved into a wine volunteer position at a winery called French Creek in Woodinville, Washington. And I was a volunteer there for several months, and the winemaker at the time, after a few months being there, just said, let's call you the assistant winemaker. So he had business cards printed up and had me sticking labels on bottles and cleaning the cellar with bleach back then, which is not really good right now, that we found out. But so I started as a volunteer and moved into it, and then that winery allowed me to produce in 1993 the first vintage of Matthews Cellars. And I just, for lack of a better name, I called it Matthews, my first name, and pretended like it was my last name, and it worked really well for me. So made 3 barrels of a Cabernet Cab Franc Merlot blend in '93. We called it Red Table Wine, Yakima Valley Red Table Wine. And back then there were maybe 7 wineries in Woodinville. Now there's over 80. And in Washington State entirely back then, I think maybe less than 60 wineries, and now 800 in the state of Washington. So I started off in a very small pool and knew everybody and sourced grapes from some of the best vineyards in the state that I still have relationships with now.
Yeah. And I thought it was really cool to tell him the story about how you, what was that about standing on the washer and dryer?
Yeah. Well, I guess it would be the 1994 vintage and 1995 vintage of Matthews. I was using a 3-piece label for the Matthews bottle, and to apply that, the only way I could do it was by hand, because it was so spread out on the bottle. So I had to hand apply the labels, and my girlfriend at the time was living in Anacortes. So I was commuting between vineyards in eastern Washington, downtown Seattle, selling my own wine, repping my own wine, and delivering my own wine, and then living in Anacortes and storing all my wine in Anacortes and hand labeling them on the washer and dryer every night, and then the next day going out and delivering wine and collecting money, driving to the vineyards, going back to Anacortes. So a lot of road time.
Yeah. So if any of you are thinking about starting a winery, you can talk to Matt or Mike.
Interesting, Stan. My first wine experience was actually labeling in Woodinville at Matt's Winery. And he was an early influence on a lot of the late 90 and early 2000 winemakers that started at that time. And it was a lot of fun to be involved with that.
Back then we lined up a whole bunch of washers and dryers, and we all lined up and labeled wine. So I like to keep that around.
So it's not an easy thing starting a winery. It's basically, it's never an easy thing. And then you sold Matthews Cellars, you said in
2008.
2008.
Yeah.
And then you became the, aside from your consulting, you said you consult about 7 wineries?
Yes. Yep.
You started winemaking for Gary at Barons Winery.
That winery started in 2001, and I was the winemaker, and the concept behind Barons was something that Gary and I put together. And the first vintages from 2001 all the way till the 2007 vintage, we produced just the Columbia Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. And that wine was produced solely for the 5 owners of Barons and their friends. So we were really just making wine for a subscription-based small group of people, 1,200 cases of wine every year. And then in 2008, when I sold my interest in Matthews, we built out a warehouse in Woodinville for the Barons Winery and moved their equipment into that facility and took the winery to where it's at now and producing several different bottlings.
Okay. We're going to try a couple of these. We're going to start with the Sauvignon Blanc 2012. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the 2012 vintage. I'm going to do a little rinse for you.
12 was a bit of a warm year for us. I think coming down from 2009, which was a difficult year for reds because the tannin level in most of the wines from red wine was really high. I think that was kind of across the board for most producers. So we made it past 09, and 2010 was a mellowing year. And then we get to 2012 with this white wine. Warm year, we just switched vineyard sources for this, so now this is off of the Willook Slope in central Washington, and it's from a vineyard there called Rosebud. These vines were planted in 1981, and this is mostly Sauvignon Blanc that has a long time been under a Chateau Saint Michel contract, and beautiful vineyard. Now third generation operating the vineyard, and this guy, Chip Dobson, has really gotten behind the idea of allowing smaller wineries to come in and purchase fruit from their family operation.
All right.
And it's intriguing. So.
All right. Hey Mike, maybe you could move that a little forward, just in case the sound. No, don't stop. Just move the tripod forward. It's a little closer, just in case you guys can't hear us. Is that good?
It is.
Yeah, I just want him to be able to hear everything he's saying. Are you widening?
I am. I'm
Okay.
pulling back a little. That's
Okay.
as wide as we can get.
Is it too close?
No, I think it's
Okay,
perfect.
perfect. I just want to make sure everybody can hear what he's saying. We got a little bit of noise in the back street, but we like that. Adds a little ambience to the interview. No, Mike. I want good ambience, not you.
It's King's Market back parking lot. Now, I wonder who works over there.
All right. So
this wine is Sauvignon Blanc, but fermented in a combination of stainless steel, concrete eggs.
Okay.
So the concrete egg-shaped tank that's produced in Burgundy, France. And then we also use neutral French oak barrels and new French oak barrels. And this 2012 only spent about 4 months in those particular tanks or vessels.
okay. So what is the advantage of concrete? We hear that a lot, and I don't know if my audience, all of them, are savvy to why would you put wine in concrete?
Well, it's kind of the shape of, in particular this egg, is the shape of the old amphoras or cuevres. So the shape of the egg gives a certain bit of activity during fermentation that keeps the lees in suspension. And just like doing batonnage or stirring a barrel during fermentation, this is kind of a natural method of circulating that juice while it's fermenting. So aside from that, the porosity of the concrete egg or concrete tank that we use is similar to that of a French oak or American oak barrel or any oak barrel. But the benefit is that we're not intentionally giving oak flavor to this wine. If we're looking to preserve minerality, if we're preserving fruit or preserving the aromatics, we can use concrete to give the same ester and flavor rounding effect as we would get from the microoxygenation that you would get from oak, but we're purely giving that to the wine versus any oak flavor, any potential bacterial problems that an oak barrel can carry with it.
All right, there you go, geeking it up a little bit. But definitely the suspension of the lees gives it that kind of a petrol, there's a little bit of a yeasty kind of smell to it, not yeast, but
right.
Almost there, not like a champagne yeast, but.
Yeah, and although we find this wine and we do sterile filter it, which is the common treatment for most white wines, heat and cold stable, I think it evolved really well in the bottle. The idea was to have this wine become more complex after 12 to 14 months and hopefully hang on to that. Our 2013 version of this, we left it into the concrete and stainless and oak a little longer, and we added the one other variable, which would be acacia wood. So versus white oak, we're using actually acacia wood to produce a barrel. And this barrel is really, if you think of a French oak or American oak barrel as a flavor component, like a tea bag in wine, you're going to add a flavor to it, and that's really how we capitalize that. It's rather than a piece of equipment, we call it an ingredient for barrels. So we complete it off in one vintage and we're done. We are looking to extract the flavor for that particular barrel. And in a French oak barrel, typically the extraction profile is about 16 to 18 months. In an acacia, it can be as short as 90 days to maybe 6 months, and you've extracted most of the flavor out of the barrel. The benefit is it's highly aromatic, not so much sappy, but more on the spice side of things, and it can liven up what may be lacking in some of the oak barrels that you use, or even in concrete, and give just a little touch of it. In 15 barrels, we used one acacia barrel, just to give us a little bit of an interesting edge to it.
Yeah. Let's see what we get on our palate. Definitely dry, nice and dry, very minerally, with a lot of minerality. Those two words should be in the dictionary. You know, minerality is not in the dictionary.
Not in the dictionary. No.
And I like minerally too because it kind of gives that, you know, just like the driving, you actually get that out of that. Very nice Sauvignon Blanc.
Thank you.
Has a nice round mid palate, but it definitely has a freshness to it.
Right. I think using some of the concrete and stainless steel preserves that. I'm not looking for mouth-searing acidity and everything else. I wanted a balanced wine, hopefully that would age gracefully and not fall apart too fast. I think there's a very difficult balance to strike in domestic white wines and trying to keep, preserve its flavor profile for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, you get a touch of the oak on this, but it's not a predominant part of it.
Right.
It's definitely got that nice fruit to it and good balance. Nice wine. Very good. And what is that rolling at? So around $17, $17, yeah. All right. Petit Baron 2010. Let's do a grants here.
So, like I said before, Barons had produced from 2001 all the way to 2007, and still do. They produced our Columbia Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. So that wine, predominantly Cabernet, with a little bit of Merlot, Petit Verdot, Cab Franc. So every year we purchase grapes from vineyards that we lease those rows and have partnerships in those rows. And we know that we're going to have X amount of fruit from a single vineyard or vineyard block every year. So when I worked at Matthews and known Matthews, I have my tiers, so I made my Columbia Valley red wine at Matthews, and then my declassified version was my claret, my Cru Bourgeois. So when I moved to making the wines full-time at Barons, and Barons decided to take this on the road and really make it a real wine, not just something Gary was carrying around in his suitcase giving out at restaurants, but this was something that was going to be an official winery. We had to have a declassification process, and rather than selling the wine off bulk, which really isn't it's kind of wash cash-wise, it makes sense for a winery to have a DCN, a second wine to move things to. So we created the Petit Baron actually in 2009. 2010 is the first year we really put it out on the market and made a volume of it. So this one we make about 1,000 cases currently, and it's 2010 is predominantly Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, a little bit of Cab Franc and Petit Verdot. Again, it doesn't see the massive percent, even 100% new French oak that the other two wines do. This one is about 50% new barrels, and in this particular vintage, mostly American oak from the portion of it.
Okay. Mike, could you give me the remote and flip that screen? I want them to be able to see these. Flip the screen around so I can see what's going on here. All right, I just want to first of all show you guys the Sauvignon Blanc. So enthralled by Matt's. What he's saying, I forgot to do my part. You can see right through it, yes. And then here is the 2010 Petit Baron Columbia Valley red wine, as he calls it, declassified. In other words, it doesn't go under the, it still has Barons on it. So this is the wine they use, kind of a cash crop wine, as they say.
It's our bottom line protector. We cash flow, but it's also a wine that we can use as our table tent. It's our calling card. This wine we make enough of it that we have luxury of being able to spread it out to restaurants outside of just King County, Washington State. So this is all down the West Coast. We've started moving east a little bit with it, and our goal is to produce a little bit more of this wine and show it off.
And I've had this before. This is $22, and we talk about second labels. This, in my opinion, would be a lot of people's first labels. Tons of red flowers on those. You get licorice, red flowers.
And this has been in the bottle since July of 2012.
This has great aromatics. I mean, it's just really kicks out of the glass, which is really cool. When you talk about second labels, a lot of wineries, their second label is actually, it's good, but it doesn't show as well as this one does, in my opinion. I've tried a lot of second label wines, and they are second label wines. They throw their leftover juice in there, and they don't put as much effort into it. But
this in particular, because this was one of the first vintages, we had already brought all the grapes in to produce our Columbia Valley Cabernet, and everything that we brought in the winery had the intention of becoming a Columbia Valley Cabernet. So it was produced along that same line, higher percentage of newer oak barrels, and then midstream we decided as a company that we were going to produce the Petit Barrel. So really it was born from selections that would have really become that, rather than being, like you just said, intentionally designed to be a second wine.
right. And what's the blend on this?
This one is, I don't know the percentages offhand.
Well,
I delete that out of my mind. But Cabernet Sauvignon predominantly, and then Merlot would be the next biggest varietal in there, just a little bit of Cab Franc and Petit Verdot. In most of our wines, we use about 2 to 5% at the most Petit Verdot, just to give it a little bit more. I use that way as acidity and
Sure.
and some of
Sure.
the smoky structure in the aromatics.
Let's see what we get on the palate here. I mean, this is a boatload of acidity on this one. Mouth-watering. Red flowers, cranberry, big time. I mean, that baby's going to age for 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, that plays in our favor and a little bit against us because, like I said before, this wine, most of the Barons wine in the past have been designed to be an age-worthy wine. And with that in mind, 2010, of course, we hadn't really planned on making a Petit Baron. So this wine was a little bit, I don't want to say a victim to it, but the intent was to have this wine, as it were, in barrels, age-worthy.
Yeah.
So the design from fermentation or vineyard selection all the way through fermentation and its upbringing was that. So I think, like you said, it's an age-worthy wine. It continues to get better and better, especially the aromatics. I think are pretty fascinating. Right
No, great black licorice. I'm thinking, close your ears, Mike, I'm thinking barbecued ribs.
Oh yeah, vegan barbecued ribs would be really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure that out. What do you kind of string tofu together? Do you take a needle and kind of string it together?
Don't get me going, Stan.
Marinated for a while. Yeah.
A nice portobello would work perfectly.
I don't know. It might overpower a portobello. Maybe put a little barbecue sauce on it.
You don't know how to get those portobellos
All right.
to play right.
Where did this peanut gallery come from? I didn't know we had one in Freddie Harbor.
Peanut gallery in a vegan restaurant works.
All right, now we're moving on to the. Let me pour them first. Last time I did this, I poured so much wine. What am I doing? We're not drinking. Practice. 2010, Barons Cabernet Sauvignon, Columbia Valley. And what is the price point on this? I think
On your shelf,
it's about close to $50.
I believe it's a little
Yeah, okay.
over 50, yeah.
All right. Oh, Mike's reaching in. There you go. That's all right. We'll let you drink.
Thank you, Stan.
Actually, you loosen up a little bit when you get some wine in you.
So every day around noon.
Yeah. Well, it's 10. I noticed 10 o'clock.
I'm just worried that Stan, when he loosens up, usually means going to the bathroom.
Okay. Keep your potty mouth to yourself. This is a class act program here. Okay, we got a lot of rose petal on this one. Black licorice again. You get a lot of licorice on this.
In 2010, we were still using the winery in the beginning, from 2001 on. The owners wanted me to design the wine to be a big American cab. They wanted a steakhouse, Jordan, Silver Oak, that kind of thing. So that's what they were after. So we used a high percentage of American oak from 01 all the way until 2010 or 2011. So I've since convinced them that the way to go is to move into French oak. And they've switched some of the partners out. Some of the old partners have gone away, been bought out by new partners. And that new blood that's come in has agreed to let me kind of go the route I wanted to go,
Okay.
and that was switch the winery to French oak. So beginning with the 2012 vintage, we're purely French oak on the barrel programs. And as I said before, the petite Baron will only see about 50% new French. But we use all those barrels from these other wines, the Red Mountain and the Columbia Valley, to move those once-used barrels into the petite
Okay.
Baron program.
All right.
So in your
And why do you
comments
prefer
on-
French oak over American?
Well, I think that French oak integrates much better with the winemaking style that I am accustomed to, and
Okay.
what I've treated my wines in the past, and all the wineries that I've consulted for and produced. On your comments on the nose, I think some of those aromatics do come from the particular style or forest of American oak that we've used in these wines.
Okay.
This is 100% American oak.
All right.
And I don't think that it comes across that strong. I used barrels that were produced by French cooperages and had them season the wood in Bordeaux. So some of these cooperages will actually bring stave wood back to Bordeaux, season it for 2 years there.
Really?
Produce the barrel in Bordeaux and bring the barrel back from Bordeaux.
Wow.
Not that it makes it, become a French oak barrel, but
The style of toasting and all
the
that.
style of
is it?
toasting, I think the know-how and the cooperages are much greater over there, and I think that you get a better product basically.
Okay.
And I think it's more consistent over here.
Yeah. All right, let's see what we can do with color. Nice structure on that. I mean, really, right now it's kind of tight. Reminds me of a fairly new Bordeaux, but there's so much in there. You get the oak, you get the blackberry currant thing going on. Nice brightness to it. Like, makes it lend it towards food really well.
Right.
But it has a nice subtlety to it too that I like. That you can tell that it's going to evolve into a really nice, softer style cab.
Right. Yeah, I think definitely for the 2009, as I said before, and you'll taste that in the Red Mountain, but 2009 and 10 were these vintages where we were, as winemakers, wrestling with a little bit of aggressive tannin issues in the wines. I think that the 2010 is much easier to approach right now than the 2009 was at this point. But like you said, I think the toast aromatic from the barrel, that charred, smoky aromatic, really works well in the nose with that kind of flat cola smell from Cabernet Sauvignon that's showing off in this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it strikes every taste point in your palate. So I know that, like you said, if it, I guess one of the rules that they would use in Pinot Noir or Syrah or any wine, if it ever tastes good, then it is good. So at one point I really thought this tastes great. So I know that as this ages and ages, it's going to become more of a long-lived wine and much more interesting wine than its youthful presence as it
Yeah,
stands.
and that's the challenge I think that people face. I mean, you winemakers face. I can tell that you're kind of a nostalgic winemaker. You like the style that like Bordeaux, where they make it to age down the road.
Right.
And it really takes a lot of thought to go, okay, what are we going to do with this wine? How much patience do we have to wait for it to develop to where we want it to get? But I think for wine guys that are really looking for an old style cab, and they want to get away from those Napa Valley, baby fat,
Right.
cabs, this is where you want to go. This is old school. This is what they used to do in the 70s in Napa. This is the way they were.
Right.
And I crave those a lot of times. They're much nicer than some of those softer cabs.
Right. Not built to age on your passenger seat, but age in your cellar. That's why we all build cellars. Otherwise,
Yeah.
what are they for? So
I like this for the elegant balance.
Right.
Just has an elegant balance across all the tastes, not one out of control.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the 2009 Barons Cabernet Sauvignon Red Mountain. So Red Mountain is one of my favorite appellations in Washington State. So there you go.
This is the first vintage of the Red Mountain that we produced at Barons, and this is just pulled from the best barrels, all French oak for this. So we pulled the best barrels of our single vineyard block out of the Hedges Estate Vineyard on Red Mountain, which we've been using at Matthews since 1997. And when we started Barons in 2001, that was the first vineyard I directed the owners of Barons to utilize. So this is out of the Hedges Estate Vineyard.
Okay.
Cabernet Sauvignon, just a touch of Petit Verdot, very little Petit Verdot.
And is this going to be the same price as the other cab, or is it going to be a little bit more?
This one's 65 retail.
Okay, 65
That's our
retail.
suggestion.
Okay. Big difference on the nose, and that's a cool thing about, and these guys that argue about terroir. All you got to do is put your nose into a glass of Red Mountain Cab, and you understand.
Right.
I still don't understand why that's such a big debate, terroir. I mean, I know the winemaker can destroy it if he wants to by over-oaking it or, doing some things to the wine.
Right.
But if you follow what the fruit tells you to do, terroir shows.
And if it's physiologically mature fruit versus just a chemical number and people pick by bricks or whatever they do, it makes it more difficult to coax that out. You can get a recognizable flavor, an individual characteristic out of a particular viticulture area if a nice spill might.
It slurps perfectly. Yeah.
It's high up, that means you got a gut, you have to lose some there. So.
That's why they keep me on this side of the camera.
All right, touche. Cheers.
So I think vineyards like
it has that nice soil quality that you get out of Red Mountain.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
right. Roasted soil. Like the Shampoo Vineyard, for instance, that one is very, every year if you taste Shampoo Vineyard Cabernet just as straight as it is out of the barrel, you get the common flavor every year. You know that, and I usually describe it as like flat cola. It's that true Cabernet characteristic, and I think that's important in looking at different AVAs. Does it really support that varietal and show it off at its best? So I think in America we're quick to name AVAs. In Washington and California we're naming AVAs every week.
Yeah.
But I think for me, in my opinion, we develop a varietal that does really well in that AVA, and then we can maybe decide we should designate something that way.
Yeah.
But versus just looking for a piece of land to call an AVA and then everybody runs in and plants grapes there, it seems to me more of a marketing use of a way to market soil than it is a recognizable characteristic in wine.
Yeah. No, and you're right. It's amazing how many AVAs they're throwing out there, but some of them are legit. I mean, like I think Rattlesnake Hills has a definite quality to it. I think the rocks when they throw that one through, I think that's a well thought out AVA. The rocks.
Right. And those AVAs like Rattlesnake are ones that have been around forever. So we know they've been proven as solid growing regions. They can be used that way.
I just love that baked earth, licorice, currants, good structure on this wine. Again, I mean, this is old school stuff. This is what we're looking for is wine guys who want to tuck some wine away for 8 to 10 years and pull it out and go, wow, this is doing what I thought it would do.
This is that prior to 1996 done Hell Mountain style that we were all used to saying, buy it when it's released, but can't drink it for 10 years because the tannin would rip your teeth off. But this wine, in particular, the 2009, again with that tannin, that intense tannin thing we had in 2009 vintage, this wine is built to age for sure.
Yeah, and it's got, what I like about it, it has a nice, like a soft underbelly. With those tannins, you can feel that the fruit. You know that it's going to integrate and come all together. You just know it. Nice work. Nice work. And these wines really, I know I'm the blue collar wine guy, but they're not overpriced really. Unlike Mike's wines, these guys are reasonably priced. And you're looking at down the road at a really good investment in these wines. But if you want to really get into these wines with the structure, with a good slab of eggplant.
Life is all about producing wine.
This last one is just awesome in terms of the dustiness quality. It takes me back to actually sampling grapes in the vineyard where you actually have a little dust on the grapes. And as I taste this, that's exactly the image I have.
Yeah.
It's quite nice.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we see good things coming with Barons. You see anything in the future? Is there something? I mean, you said you're going to French Oak. Is there anything else you're looking at dabbling in a little bit?
Well, we actually started a wine club, which everybody in the world has a wine club. But what we're doing with the wine club is kind of the same thing that I did to produce the Red Mountain So we've taken varietals, Petit Verdot, and we've taken single vineyard lots of Cabernet. But they're barrels that I've hand selected out of the cellar, and we're bottling those barrels as they are, without blending with any other barrels, even if it's the same lot.
Okay.
So we're taking Petit Verdot, Merlot. We have a Cabernet that I made several years ago, and bottling those wines when they're ready to be bottled. So I
And
have
releasing to the wine club?
just to the wine club, right?
Okay, so if I go to Barons' website, I can put a link on this,
Yep,
and they can find the wine club.
absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely.
perfect.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching, and hey, we got to put a little wine in here to do a cheer. Might as well put the red wine in, the Red Mountain. All right. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Cheers. And here's to keeping the snob out of wine.